Maxey from outside. Sixers lead, courtesy of Tyrese Maxey.
Hit deep to left field. Going back is LoCastro. It is gone!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, as we continue on our 2025 college football preview series, going to try and hit on as many of these top-tier teams, the biggest brands in college football, as we inch closer and closer to kickoff. Recording today on July 29th, we are 25 days away from Week 0 officially kicking off between Kansas State and Iowa State. Noon Eastern time over in Dublin, Ireland. So very excited as we get another day closer to college football, to real football that matters on our screen. So far in our series, we've covered Oklahoma, we've covered Michigan, we've covered Clemson, we've covered Texas Tech. And today we hit on South Carolina. We head down to Columbia, South Carolina to touch on the Gamecocks. We're going to continue to kind of rotate through these series. Next episode, we're going to be doing USC. Then we're going to be heading over to the ACC, I believe. Yeah, the ACC, where we have Miami. We're going to be talking about in the Big 12, Arizona State to kind of finish out those first 8 episodes, looking to hit 25 to 30, try and get these top teams the coverage that they need, the coverage that they deserve as we head into this season. But as always, we're going to hit on the head coach of the football program, the 2024 season, recap that, then preview the offense and defense for the upcoming season, and then as well go through schedule prediction and some gambling potential plays from our friends over at DraftKings Sports. So as always, we're going to start at the top with the head man, the head coach that's running the program. And for the South Carolina Gamecocks, that is Shane Beamer, 29-22 overall record as the head coach for the Gamecocks, 1-2 in his bowl games, has been at South Carolina since 2021. So he's entering year 5. I think last year was, I'm not going to say a breakout year, but a year that, made him feel a little bit more comfortable, where they went 9-4. We'll get into the entire season last year and recap that. But he kind of needed that season to kind of break through and be like, all right, I'm here. I can do this. I can win at a high level. 9-4 at South Carolina, very respectable record. If they had won that bowl game, one of the more intense non-college football playoff bowl games of recent memory against Illinois, where they lost, I believe it was 21-17. If they had won 10 games last season, they would be feeling really good. But I think they should feel really good heading into this season, a lot of momentum. But Beamer's gone 7-6. With a season that they went into it with an over-under 2.5 win total, I believe it was. He overachieved year 1, goes 8-5 year 2. Year 3, he falls back. They go 5-7. His seat's starting to get a little bit hot, but kind of makes it a little bit more comfortable with a 9-4 record last year. I think Beamer's a really good coach. South Carolina, a hard job, but he's gotten some good recruits down there. I think the future is bright. They just have a really tough schedule this year. We're going to get into all that and more. But when you look at the 2024 season and recap that, in a nutshell, 9-4 record last year, as we said, under Beamer. It was a breakout kind of breakthrough year, as I said, that he needed to not feel his seat warming up anymore, not feeling his seat getting hot. And part of the main reason for that kind of breakthrough and emergence as, not bottom of the tier SEC team, but, middle to above average type of team in this league. They have the quarterback emerge, and that's the key, I think, in this conference. Lenora Sellers emerges as one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the nation last year. They did wind up losing that bowl game 27-17 to Illinois, but they did take down the ACC champ Clemson 17-14, who was ranked 12th in the nation at the time. They beat 3 ranked opponents on the season, and then they lost to LSU by 3 and Bama by 2. 2 of, if not the flagship programs in the entire SEC. You're hanging in there right with them. You're knocking on their door. That has to give you some confidence, even if you're falling short in those games. You can really feel the momentum of this South Carolina program building. And maybe this year, even with a super tough schedule, they become one of the national kind of powers and find themselves in the playoffs on the back of one of, if not the best potential quarterback in the country here in Lenora Sellers. They're tasked with a really tough schedule this year. Can they emerge as one of those top teams is the main question. How good can Lenora Sellers be? Will he tap into all that potential? Can he be the best quarterback in the country? Can he be the Heisman Trophy winner? I think that ultimately will determine how high the ceiling for this team is, how good they can be, given that how tough that 2025 schedule is, which we'll touch on at the end. But a real good momentum building year last year. Let's see if they can continue to carry that forward as they head into this season. transition now over to the offensive side of the ball and preview that unit. That unit is led by who I think, for my money, is going to be the best player in college football this season in Lenore Sellers. Now, their schedule is very tough. They have got tough opponent after tough opponent, a very rigorous SEC conference. Do I think that's necessarily going to lead to the most wins? Probably not. But you give me one chance to pick a college football player this year, I'm going to go with Lenore Sellers. I think he's going to be a freak. I think he's going to be the most exciting quarterback in the entire country. He's a true freak athlete at the position who showed last year. You don't say this lightly. You don't really throw this term out or these two players out there and compare a quarterback to it, but I'm going to do it here. I saw shades of Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton in the way that Lenore Sellers played last year. The size at 6'3", 240 pounds, Cam Newton, the power that he runs with, but also the speed and the wiggle of Lamar Jackson, being able to make defenders miss in the open field. He is a dynamic runner. Can he get better at throwing the football, become a more accurate overall passer? That is going to determine how good he is. Will he be the number one pick in next year's draft? But all the talent's there. And when you throw out Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson, two of the best college quarterbacks we've ever seen, to NFL MVPs, that's some lofty praise. So a lot of praise and a lot of hype to live up here, too, for Lenore Sellers. But I wouldn't put that out there if I didn't truly believe that he's that good, that he has that potential. He leads an offense that including him, 7 returning starters. The offense scored 30 or more points in 7 different games last year. They were able to put up points in a hurry in bunches last season. In 12 games last year, Lenore Sellers threw for 2,500 yards and 18 touchdowns. So, not exactly the most eye-popping passing statistics, but he ran for 674 yards and 7 touchdowns. He had 2 games with over 100 rushing yards, including 166 and 2 rushing touchdowns against Clemson. Really was kind of, I think, his national coming out party in that game. His name was known throughout the year by college football fans, but that was a game that really put him on the map, and I think seriously gave him that legit momentum heading into this season as a potential Heisman candidate. He's 18-1 right now over at DraftKings to win the Heisman Trophy. They lost a key running back, a very key player to that offense that helped them lead to that 9-4 record last year in Rocket Sanders. He rushed for 880 yards and 11 touchdowns. But they did add Utah State transfer running back Rasul Fazian. He rushed for 1,100 yards last season, and Sellers is back. Sellers is going to have double-digit carries every game. I think the offensive line is solid enough, sturdy enough that they're going to be able to, pave out some holes in the running game. But the great part about Sellers is you can do design runs with him. He'll ad-lib. He'll make plays off scrambles. He's going to be able to go out there and make everyone around him better, make this offense as a whole better. Wide receivers, and when you look at that room, they have 5 freshmen coming in. Can any emerge? Can any be, not going to say a Jeremiah Smith or a Ryan Williams, but make plays, make these downfield plays, help Lenore Sellers make some explosive plays. I think that determines how good this offense is. Bring back 2 of the top 3 pass catchers from last year's team in Nick Harbor and Mizeo Bennett. And as I said, the offensive line, I think, is going to be a solid enough group. I don't think we're going to be talking about them as one of the top groups in the SEC or the country. They lost 3 starters, so there's some question marks there. But I do think there's some guys ready to step in. Sellers is going to have his plate full, but I think he has the talent to overcome it and really help elevate everyone around him. Switch over to the defense now. One of the best defenses in the entire country last year, but they do lose a handful of guys for this year's team. We saw flashes of him last year in bunches, but Dylan Stewart, remember the name, a true freshman last year. Just remember seeing on Twitter some of the athleticism, the bend that he has around the edge, the power that he could play with at times. He's going to be the alpha on this team and potentially be the best pass rusher in the entire country. This unit only returns 5 starters from last year. From a team that only allowed 18.1 points per game, which was 12th in the country. So a lot of, expectations, to keep that standard there. I think that's what Shane Bieber wants. And he wants the standard of South Carolina's football program's defense to be. But I think it's a little bit impractical to think that the defense is going to be as good as they were last year with all the key pieces out. They lost 5 NFL draft choices and 4 guys that got signed as undrafted free agents that played on that unit last year. But as I said at the beginning, Dylan Stewart is back, though, and he showed the tools to be one of the best pass rushers in the country. Had 6.5 sacks as a true freshman. I expect him to get into double digits this season, potentially be the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. That's how good I think he could be. And when you have the SEC Defensive Player of the Year potentially in in Dylan Stewart, and you have the potential SEC Offensive Player of the Year, potential Heisman winner at quarterback in Lenore Sellers, you might have the best player on the field at all times, whether you're on offense, whether you're on defense. So that's some pretty lofty praise from me to those 2 guys, and that should put these guys, in contention to have a chance each and every Saturday. Brian Thomas is back as well. He had 4.5 sacks last year. up front on the defensive line too. So two pretty good pass rushers there in Stewart and Thomas. The front seven, I think, though, is most likely to take a step back as a whole from their great play last year, and that's going to impact the secondary as well. Let's saw Nick Amuwari, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, one of the top DBs in the country. He goes to the draft as well. What it all comes back to, though, for this team, I think the offense is going to be good, led by Sellers, obviously. I think they have the potential to be great, one of the better units in the entire country with one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the entire country leading the way. So they're going to be able to go out there, put up points, be able to score regularly, score in bunches. But will the defense be able to get off the field? Will the defense be able to get stops? That's going to determine how good this team is. Can they be, in that same ballpark as last year, 18.1 points per game, 12th in the country? If that number is 21, 22 points per game, I still think South Carolina will be in good shape in a lot of their games. They play strong offenses this year with veteran quarterbacks like LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Clemson. You're going to have some tough tests week in and week out. That defense is going to be tested. So I think the unit takes a step back as a whole, but it can't be too much against this brutal SEC schedule. Are going to leave what I think could be a really good offense out to dry week in and week out. When you go to big picture wise, look at the schedule from top to bottom and some of the DraftKings odds. The over-under for their win total is set at 7.5. Such a tough schedule for a team with high expectations, I think. The over is at plus money at plus 125, so DraftKings likes them to finish under that 7 win mark. The under at minus 150, 60 to 1 to win the Natty, 25 to 1 to win the SEC, plus 500 to make the playoff, and minus 800 to miss. So DraftKings, the Vegas is looking at the schedule and saying, I like this team, I think, but not so much to make the playoff or make some legitimate noise. If all goes well, and if Lenore Sellers is the best player in the country, we've seen a guy like Cam Newton do that before. That Auburn team wasn't great, wasn't one of the best teams in the country, but he elevated the play kind of everyone around him. Can Lenore Sellers do that and make a run through the SEC? That's going to determine, how good this team really can be. Can Lenore Sellers stay healthy as well? I think is the most pivotal part. With all the carries that he gets, with all the hits that he's going to be taking out in the open field, he's got to be able to stay healthy and last the entire season. All right, they open up the season. We'll go through game by game. Versus Virginia Tech on a neutral. I like Va Tech to be a strong team this year, finish about 8-4, but on a neutral field. If this was at Virginia Tech, I might actually lean towards the Hokies, but I'm going to give Virginia Tech a win here at home. FCS opponent in South Carolina State, give them a win there. Start out 2-0 versus Vandy. I'll give them a 3-0 start. At Mizzou, go on the road there, 4-0. And they host Kentucky, 5-0. They're sitting here at 5-0. They're most likely a top 10 program in the country. Probably no wins at this stage over a ranked opponent. This is where you get into the meat of your schedule and the games start to really get tough. At LSU, I'll give them a loss there. I think LSU is a national title contending team. That's a tough spot. Anytime of the season you go in there, that will most likely be a night game. I'd have to chalk up as a loss. Host Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma and South Carolina are kind of like mirror images of themselves. All goes well, I could see them winning 9-10 games. Really, really tough schedules. Things don't go all that well. I could see them bottom out, going 5-7, 4-8, and some potential, firings happening with both programs there. But with it being a home game, I'm going to give South Carolina the benefit of the doubt in that spot. Then they host Alabama. I'm going to give them an L there. I think Bama is a 10-2, 11-1 type team. I just don't think South Carolina has all the pieces to compete with them on both sides of the ball yet. At Ole Miss, very tough game. Give them a loss there. At Texas A&M, give them a very tough loss there. So they go from 5-0 to 5-1, 6-1, 6-2, 6-3, 6-4, just like that. But that's a murderer's row of a schedule. 5 games in a row at LSU versus Oklahoma versus Bama, at Ole Miss, and at Texas A&M. Doesn't get much tougher than that. They host Coastal. Obviously, should get the win there, setting them up with a 7-4 record as they head into the Clemson game. Clemson national title expectations in their own right this year. Lenore Sellers has his breakout game I said last year, 166 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. They go to Clemson and win 17-14. I think history rewrites itself this year, and Clemson comes to Columbia, South Carolina, and South Carolina gets the win there. They go to 8-4. That's not going to be good enough to make the playoff, even against that loaded schedule. They go 9-3. I think they'll have a seat at the table, but I do like them to go over that 7.5 wins at plus 125. It is a play that I'm actually going to look to play plus money there, because I do think if all goes right, this could be a team that wins 9 or 10 games and clears that 7.5 number pretty easy. So I have pretty lofty expectations for them, even though with them going to 8-4, that's just such a tough schedule. But I think Lenore Seller is going to be a freak, going to be awesome. I think Dylan Stewart's going to be a freak, going to be awesome. And I think it's going to be a fun year to be a South Carolina football fan, watch them, and they could potentially surprise and be one of those teams that comes out of nowhere to be, a 10-win team and find themselves in the playoffs. So very excited to watch the Gamecocks. That's our latest SEC episode. As I said, we'll be transitioning over to a Big Ten episode next with Big Ten episode next, yes, with USC, the other USC. Then we're going to be rounding out ACC with Miami, Big 12 with Arizona State before transitioning back, making our way back to the SEC and starting back at the top there. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As always, please like, please subscribe, and we'll be talking to you next time here on Pick Swap Media.